Today we're on to welcome Mr. J to the show today. I'm very happy to have him on. He talks about an amazing topic that we all kind of go through in a sense, in one way or another, and that is betrayal trauma, right? And experiencing this can be very difficult, very devastating. And if we don't know how to traverse it in our own lives, man, we can really kind of hold us back from our potential. This man right here has an amazing story. He helps so many people. Has written an excellent book, and essentially, learning the tools of this can help us kind of navigate our own lives. And very excited to have him on the show today. How are you doing, man?
How are you? Awesome. I'm doing awesome. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to have you. So, also, very curious to hear your story and how you got into betrayal trauma and everything you're doing to help people today.
Sure. I'm going to just quickly, briefly give my story because I think people are more interested in how they can get out of this hell than my personal life. But I was very, very close with my dad, and he passed away abruptly. Like, I was talking to him one day, and we were talking on the phone and joking around, and 4 days later, we were lowering his body into the ground. And so a few nights after that, I had my very first panic attack. And again, I'm going to fast forward a lot of information. It was while trying to research why in the world did I have a panic attack, because those don't play, man. You if you haven't had a panic attack, it's something else. But anyway, I wound up on this journey of discovering a lot of unhealed childhood trauma. Some of it was betrayal. And so I got involved with a community. I wound up helping a lot of people in that community. The CEO reached out to me, told me, she had a certification program. I went through the certification program, which was pretty in-depth and intense. And after being certified as a betrayal trauma practitioner, I took all of my world experience, all of my previous knowledge and degrees and experience, and now I work with people that have what's called betrayal trauma. So that's the very short version of what got me into what I'm doing now. So they always say either sometimes you pursue a field and sometimes a field pursues you. And I think this field pursued me.
That's a great point you made right there. It's like some of us, we get into a space because of our own challenges and our own trauma. And through overcoming that, we become a light and model for others and be of service, which is exactly what you've done, man.
Awesome. Which is
Yeah.
why I accept it. And I think, honestly, Anthony, I think I stepped into my purpose. And the reason being is because, well, one of the many reasons being is because I have like a monthly coaching call with other practitioners. And when we're on those calls, I hear a lot of them saying, "Man, I'm getting really burnt out, and by the end of the night, I'm crying or I'm stressed out or whatever." And I promise you, I never feel that way. And when I'm in the shower at night, I got the biggest smile on my face because, I'm also a person of faith, and I believe I'm being used as a vessel to help people. So I just love what I do. And listen, I hear some pretty horrific stories all day long. But this is why I say I think I was called. I think I stepped into my purpose, and it's a phenomenal field. It's an extremely disheartening one for the people that are going through betrayal trauma, but it's a wonderful field, and I'm thrilled and appreciative, to be honest with you, that I'm in this role.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Finding your purpose is key and just being, because when you work from that place, that's when you really deliver that passion and really can make an impact.
Yeah.
So can you define betrayal trauma? I don't think that's something that I've come across too much, and I'm really excited to kind of find out what that is and how people can learn about it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can give you all kinds of definitions, but I'll just say this: stress affects us. Trauma changes us. Betrayal trauma changes our mind, body, soul outlook on life, our hypervigilance, because we are traumatized from somebody that we have a dependency upon or a reliance upon. So, for instance, I'm going to give you a couple quick examples. You can have betrayal trauma from a boss because you rely on that boss or you rely on that job for your livelihood. You can have betrayal trauma from let's just say somebody close around you taking their own life, committing suicide, because you depended on them for whatever. It could be emotional needs or what have you. That's betrayal trauma. You can have betrayal trauma from even yourself or your creator. I've talked to a woman before, and she's like, "Mr. J, I've done my exercises and my meditations, and I drank my shakes, and I was healthy, and I was still diagnosed with breast cancer. I feel my body betrayed me or my God betrayed me." And then most certainly betrayal trauma from like a spousal infidelity or a spousal affair, which is probably 90% of my clients. So it's anyone that you have a reliance upon, a dependency upon, and they betray your trust.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing this. So it kind of sounds like we expect things to go a certain way, but it seems like we're almost kind of blindsided in a sense, and things go a completely other way. Do I have that right?
Yes. Now you brought up a very good term, blindsided, and I don't know if we want to get into this right now, but there is a term called betrayal blindness. Very quickly, I'll just say it was coined by a lady named Jennifer Freed in the 90s. And basically, it's a part of our nervous system: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, F it, all these other Fs, okay? And basically, what happens is that it's our body's natural tendency to keep us safe. So it's actually a good thing. However, it turns out to be our worst enemy. And let me just quickly say this. Do you remember Little Red Riding Hood? You know, she wants to go see her grandmother, so she makes cookies and pumpkin bread and oatmeal, whatever. I made that up. I don't know if she made oatmeal cookies, but whatever. So she's trudging through the forest to go see her grandmother, right? Now she knows there's a big bad scary wolf, but she's got blinders on. She wants to see her grandmother. She knocks on the door of the cabin and she doesn't hear anything. And usually she hears her grandmother's voice, but she doesn't hear anything. And so something inside of her says, okay, there's a pink flag here, a red flag here, something's off, but she wants to see her grandmother so much, no, she doesn't listen to it. And so she opens up the door. She's like, Grandma, are you home? She doesn't get a response. Now these pink flags are turning into red flags. Your grandmother's not home, something's up. But she doesn't turn and run away. She doesn't lean into it. She doesn't get curious. She doesn't ask questions. She has blinders on. I want to see my grandma. She even goes in the back bedroom, and she knows it's not her grandmother, Anthony, because she says, Grandma, why do you have beady eyes, sharp teeth, and a long nose? And she winds up getting, eaten. So here's the deal. There are times when we are going through life, and let's just say we're in a relationship, and we might come across something, feel something, think something, whatever, but betrayal blindness kicks in, and that's our body's natural tendency to push things aside, because on a subconscious level, what we're thinking is, no, I'm not going to ask about the lipstick in the glove compartment because, oh my God, if we go through a divorce, we just had a $30,000 wedding. That would be embarrassing. Now my kids are going to visit their parents every other weekend. No, that's too big. So you know what? Oh, I'm married to such a nice guy. He took his coworker home from work because her car broke. That's what it must be. So that's betrayal blindness. We start making excuses for things. But now here's the deal, Anthony. Betrayal blindness might work for us in the moment to keep us safe, but when the rubber hits the road and the bomb actually explodes and we find out the truth of our lives, now we're trying to heal that devastation while being so distanced and divorced from our own selves for so long because we never leaned in to get curious. And this is why you hear a lot of people say, how could I be so blind? How could I be so stupid? How could I be so foolish? No, you weren't none of that. You believed in love. Betrayal blindness came in and did its job.
Yeah, you explained that really well. It's like we almost don't want to look at the situation in a sense, right? Because we're almost afraid of it could kind of like change our entire paradigm in a sense. Do I have that right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see that. It's like I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. It's like it's almost like you don't want to see the truth because it can definitely be scary sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, nobody wants to walk into a fire. Nobody wants to walk into a fire. However, it's leaning into that fire to find the treasures that will ultimately give you freedom, because a couple can't keep living in lies and gaslighting and minimizing and blame shifting and deflecting and affairs and infidelity and cheating, or like I said, that's the majority of what I deal with right now. So yes, nobody wants to walk into the fire, but if that's the only way you're going to expose the truth and start working towards it, because I'll tell you something about a good upwards of 90% or more of my couples, they do decide to stay together, reconnect, renew, rebuild, and have far better relationships than they ever had before.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, so that definitely speaks to the fact that we can definitely heal from this and get better. So glad to get into that. So if people may be experiencing this, what can we look for? Like, how do we know we're experiencing this? Are there any symptoms that you look for? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, symptoms in terms of I feel something's off, or symptoms in terms of the bomb went off. Now, what are my symptoms?
Let's start with like some symptoms before we get to that. Like maybe some things that could be potentially leading up to that in a sense.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something. One of the things that I think, personally speaking, is one of the biggest topics we should really focus on is attunement. Attunement is knowing who you are, your gut feeling, and there's all kinds of tricks to do this, which maybe if we have time we'll get into. But it's really understanding who you are, what makes you tick, what frustrates you. Keep in mind, Anthony, that I always say we're far more than human beings. We're human evolvements. You're a different person today than you were 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You're going to be a different person 2 years from now than you are today.
Okay,
So you have to continuously get to know who you are, the new you, based on life experiences and whatever. So we're evolving constantly. But now when you're with somebody, you also have to continuously build those bridges to the other person. The only way you can do that is constant attunement. So you want to kind of always do a body scan for yourself. What am I going through? What's bothering me? What are my triggers? And a lot of times, you know what we do when we want to attune to ourselves? Quickly, what we do, no, I want to go have a cigarette. I want to go watch a crime show. I want to go talk to a friend. We want to run because we don't want to sit with our thoughts, because sometimes we get that mirror in front of us. I'm like, ooh, what I'm looking at is scary. No way. But the thing is that when we're in a relationship, we also have to attune to our partner, attune to our spouse, attune to our significant other. Because when you attune to each other, then it doesn't allow for any division. And division is one of the final steps in the process to open it up for an affair. And I say final steps because I always say affairs and infidelity, they start in childhood. They don't start in relationships.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. So it sounds like starting to have this sense of awareness, right? Like seeing how people are doing, so things don't get worse. And as you mentioned, like that can be difficult sometimes. There's so many distractions, things we have to take care of. So it can kind of be hard to kind of pinpoint that awareness. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And listen, listen. Every week of every month of every year, it just seems like we're pulled thinner in different directions. Listen, I'm a father of 2 kids. I work. I've been married going on 24 years. I volunteer. I'm very active in my church. I mean, every day it seems like more people want more out of me, and I'm stretched thin. You could easily lose track of yourself. You're fit. Not taking vitamins, not working out, not drinking water. So if you can so easily lose track of yourself, now imagine you're trying to get plugged into a relationship. A lot of times couples, it's just go time. It's like, we have one teenager and one young child. So sometimes I feel like I'm just Mr. Taxi. It's like, I'm dropping so-and-so off at tennis, picking so-and-so up. I'll see you there. Can I grab dinner on the way here? So I understand a lot of couples where as the kids get older and they leave for college, they're sitting across from each other on the couch looking at each other saying, who are you? Because you're busy with life and jobs and things like that. You have to absolutely make it another one of your high priority jobs to tune into your relationship.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. Is there any things that you recommend to actually start to build that attunement? Because as I mentioned, that can be difficult. Like, is there any practices you give to people who do kind of focusing on that?
Listen, there are so many things that I can recommend, but I'll just give you a few of my favorites. One of my things is anytime we have a request from our partner has a request from us, we should always respond with my pleasure. That does something psychologically to the brain where you feel as if not only are they going to do it, not only do they want to do it, but they're excited to do it because it feeds your soul. And I don't give a crap if you ask them for a drink of water. Another thing, too, is called the sandwich technique, and I actually do this myself, and it can be done once a day, it could be in the morning, it could be at night, it can be once a week, it could be whatever, but just kind of implement it. And what that is you're telling your spouse something, one good thing, one not so good thing, and then another good thing. And the rules with this is you can't talk about the not so good thing. You can't talk about it. You just have to absorb it, acknowledge it, validate it, and go think about it, pray about it, meditate, whatever you want. So for instance, let's just say you're with somebody would say, Anthony, when you brought me coffee this morning before you left for work, that really touched me. Thank you so much. However, when I called you on your lunch break, you abruptly I know you're in a meeting, but you abruptly hung up without even saying goodbye or I love you. That kind of hurt me. Another good thing is when you came home today, you surprised me with my favorite hot dog from my favorite gas station. Thank you so much. And it doesn't have to be like an act. It could be anything at all. And so now what you're hearing is, oh, I have to be more mindful when I'm before I hang up to say, okay, I got to go, my love. I love you. Have a good day. So you're going to be more mindful of that. He or she's going to be able to vent to you, and that's going to get it off their chest. And that's how you grow together. So there's so many tips and techniques that you can do to attune to each other. Those are just two that are my favorite.
Awesome. So a big part of it sounds like making the person feel like they're seen and heard. Is that right?
Seen, heard, appreciated, and alive. Because if you, I think it was a survey that was recently taken not too long ago of over 1,000 people that had affairs, and the number one reason when they asked what did the affair partner make you feel that you didn't feel in your marriage, and they said alive. So make them feel alive, and you might even ask somebody what is it that I can help you do to feel alive. Now, let me just say this because I want to make sure that nobody that's in a relationship that is enduring betrayal trauma ever feels if it was something they did or didn't do, the person that was faithful. Because here's the deal. When that survey came back and it said the number one reason what people said was the affair partner made them feel alive, do you know what I thought of? My response to that was, you know something? It was you allowed them to make you feel alive. So what I want you to do is take whatever component you gave them to make you feel alive and give that to your spouse to rebuild.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Out of curiosity, do you ever find like when you're going through these techniques that people just come across like their own barriers that enables them to not do it in a sense? Because it's like, oh, like, because it feels like they're almost not seen or heard, but it's like that can be difficult in that moment.
Absolutely. But, I'm going to tell you something. I tell couples all the time, listen, one of the things you have to tell yourself is, number one, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? So that's your choice. You could either be right or you can be happily married or happy in a relationship, whatever. That's number one. Number two, what's interesting, Anthony, is so many people come to me and like, Mr. J, we have communication issues. We have communication issues. And I'm like, well, I can hear you fine. You talk English. You don't have communication issues. You have all kinds of other issues. So one of my definitions of communication, simple. When both parties walk away from the interaction feeling safe. That's communication. That's it. You don't have to like what you heard, love what you heard, even agree with what you heard. But can you acknowledge the other person's perspective and let them walk away feeling safe? Now, relationships are a dance. You got to hold your own self, hold your own needs, hold your own ethics and virtues and beliefs, whatever, while also supporting the other person. It could be a dance. It really could be a dance. But this is why when two people get together, which is why they say usually the first 18 months to 24 months is the most difficult. That's because when two people get together, it's like sandpaper. Oh,
Mr. J? Oh, man.
um, can you splice these together? Can we just keep on
Yeah,
keeping
I can do
on?
that. Yeah, you cut it out for about a minute,
Okay, I don't
but
even know where I left off.
yeah, just wherever you were, just go like a minute back or just about a minute.
Okay, can you see me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, just go for it, man.
Okay. What I was saying is the first 18 months to 24 months in a relationship is often the most difficult. And that's because when people come together, they're like sandpaper. So you have some sandpaper and they have some sandpaper and you're rubbing and you're rubbing and well, after the passion wears off, then the friction comes and you're rubbing. But here's the deal. If you keep rubbing and you have a stick-to-itiveness, eventually what happens is both of you guys grind down your sandpaper and now it's smooth and then it's I don't want to say smooth sailing for the duration, but now it's much more smoother rather than you guys are constantly rubbing that sandpaper, causing friction together.
Yeah, 100%. It sounds like communication is key. Like you mentioned, it's kind of a dance in a sense. And it's being able to kind of go with it in a sense. Like I feel like in my own life, I think it's key not to get triggered by the other person in a sense. Like just being able to kind of understand what they're saying is like seek first to understand. Like really want to be a space for them, like a safe space, as you kind of mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. I always say don't come to the communication table with expectations because expectations often lead to frustrations. Come to the communication table with curiosity. Now, I'm going to tell you something. One of the biggest, woo, Lord have mercy, one of our best friends and worst enemies, Anthony, is our ego. Our ego wants us to look and feel good. We all have one. We all love our ego. We all lean into our ego, and we should. But they could be an enemy in a relationship. Because if you're in a relationship and somebody says, Anthony, I don't like the way you're talking to me, your ego's going to kick in. And I don't talk to you any certain way. This is how I talk. And if you don't like it, blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe your upbringing has some whatever. I'm not saying you would do that. I'm just saying our ego kicks in. Our ego's job is to make us look and feel good. So we don't want to be challenged on things. So really, we have to leave our egos away from the discussion table and get
Yeah,
cool.
because definitely, it's like because we can almost be afraid of like losing a sense of our identity in a sense. But it sounds like what you're saying is to be adaptable within that.
Yes, listen, if you take a rose, let's just say you take a white rose and you cut the stem and you put one half in blue food coloring water and the other half in red, what happens is the whole color of the rose changes. You're going to get some petals that are red, some that are blue, some maybe that are purple because they're together. And that's what a relationship should be. It's that, we're still going to have our own identity, but we are also going to merge as one. We're going to merge as one. And this is why betrayal in a relationship hurts so devastating and deeply because when you're in a relationship with somebody, you're co-creating with them. And so when they step out of the relationship and trust dies, a part of you actually dies. And in our brain, the same receptors of pain is physical pain, which is why a lot of times I'll be talking to clients that are still bear hugging the toilet vomiting because they just found out their spouse betrayed them. There's a physical pain with this. When I talk to clients, they tell me, Mr. J, it's like somebody took a sledgehammer and whammed it into my gut. It's like it took the breath out of me. Many people describe it as it's like somebody taking a raw knife and gutting my stomach and all of the contents of my inside just come out. It is the most painful experience anybody could ever go through. It's because you're co-creating with someone. So a part of you dies. A part of you absolutely dies, and it's painful.
I mean, that makes sense for sure. It's like, of curiosity, so if people are at that like terrible point where it does happen, and we're not just having symptoms or maybe like the upwork up to it, are there different strategies? I would imagine you approach it totally differently if somebody's like in this terrible state of it just like blowing up in a sense.
Yeah. So if I heard you correctly, here's the deal. Before doing what I do now, I used to be a public educator, and I used to work with children that had special needs. And when you work with children with special needs, they have what's called an IEP, an individualized education plan. So I took that concept into my sessions now, and I give every couple or individual what's called an individualized healing plan, because everybody's going to be completely different based on gender, based on orientation, based on where you fall in the hierarchy of your siblings. Are you the eldest sibling? Because you look at the world a little different if you're the eldest sibling than you do the youngest sibling. What are your coping mechanisms? What are your insecurities? You have to take all that into consideration because there's no such thing as one size fits all on the healing journey after betrayal. So really, I'd have to get to know the individual or the couple to say, okay, because listen, so many, even love languages, Anthony, are you familiar with the love languages?
I am.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something. I can't tell you how many times love languages plays a role in betrayal, and I'll give you a perfect example. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and you know what she told me? She said, Mr. J, I don't care that my husband did A, B, and C with his secretary. Even though it bothers me, yeah, I don't like it. They kissed. I don't. but he had to buy her gifts. Well, she just told me that her love language is gifts. And so the husband gave his secretary what she considers. So you have to take attachment styles, love language, like childhood issues, whatever. All these come into play to heal. It's not a one size fits all thing. Now, there are some universal things. Like one of the first things I tell people to do is because infidelity hits us at our core insecurities. You got to, as Rose said in the movie, are you ready to go back to Titanic? You got to go back to Titanic. You got to go back to your childhood and say, okay, what insecurities do I have that I need to heal? Because if I don't heal my own insecurities, then no matter what my partner, spouse, significant other does, I'm going to imprison them for the rest of their life because I'm going to be expecting them to heal what I didn't heal when I was younger. Now, that's not to say that they don't have their own stuff they got to heal, the person who stepped out, because they do. And boy, let me tell you something, they got a long road ahead of them. Healing broken trust is not easy. It's not fun. It's not fair. It doesn't feel good, and it takes a long time. Does it happen? Absolutely. I got many couples that have rebuilt, and like I told you before, they're doing better than ever. But this is not easy at all. I tell people all the time, listen, I cannot heal your relationship. I can't fix your marriage. I'm a nothing and a no one. The only thing I can do is take your ship that's in tumultuous waters and steer you into calmer waters. You are the one that has to do the rowing. And when I mean rowing, and especially on this journey, that means you're rowing until you feel your arms are ready to fall off, and that's where the journey just begins. It's a lot of work.
I love that. I mean, you made some great points there. It's like, I'm really glad that you mentioned a personalized approach, right? Because you mentioned all these things that kind of play into what happened and how people need to heal. Because I feel like that's the essence of a great coach is they actually going back to attunement, seeing what the person actually needs, and not just say, hey, here's the thing, and only getting results for certain people instead of actually customizing. So I'm really happy you mentioned that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you something. I absolutely am very pro every mental health professional out there. I'm very pro every mental health professional. But I will say, and this is even done with surveys and studies, if somebody's going through betrayal trauma, you really shouldn't just go see a general marriage counselor or therapist. You really got to see. It's like this. I have back issues. I'm going to go see a dentist. Well, sure, they're both doctors, but like, two different things. So a lot of times, I can't tell you how many clients I have, and they came to me because they have T trauma. That's called therapy trauma. And that's because they go to a therapist after betrayal, and the therapist wants to work on, well, let's work on communication skills, and let's work on, and they, no. And then people get frustrated, and then they're traumatized more. No, my field is a niche within a niche. And it takes somebody that absolutely understands betrayal trauma. Actually, now that I'm on this, I'm just going to give you something, and at any time, feel free to interrupt me. There's a couple key differences between trauma and betrayal trauma. So there's non-betrayal trauma and there's trauma. So there's a couple of them, but just for this interview, I'm just going to give you three, okay? The key differences, say, between trauma and betrayal trauma, and this is why you need to find somebody that's trauma informed. Not only that, betrayal trauma informed, so it's a niche within a niche, is because, number one, it's very personal. So, for instance, Anthony, let's just say you lose your parents, right? That's very traumatizing. But you don't personalize it. Well, unless you did away with your parents and murdered them. No, you don't personalize it. But when it comes to you finding out somebody that was significant in your life cheated on you or had an affair, now all of a sudden you're taking it personal. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I good enough? Was it my pecs? Was it lack of sex? Was it what? You start thinking, what did I do wrong? So betrayal trauma, we personalize it. When non-betrayal trauma, we don't. The second thing is it's a secret society. God forbid your parents are gone. You call your boss and you get bereavement time. Your friends come out of the woodwork and say, I'm sorry. Your neighbors come over and bring you casserole. When you discover there's an infidelity in your marriage, you're embarrassed. You're ashamed. You have guilt. You don't want to shout it from the rooftops. So now you have to heal in private. And now you feel alone, which adds to the challenge of the journey. And the last reason, or the last whatever, that just for this interview's sake, that of how betrayal trauma is different from non-betrayal trauma is because betrayal trauma is the only trauma that affects the past, present, and future. So again, you lose your parents, you're going to be affected today. You're going to be affected in the future. But the only trauma is betrayal trauma that affects the past, because now, Anthony, you can't look at vacation photos of last year like you did before. You can't drive down certain streets that you once were able to. You can't go to restaurants that you want. You can't go to hotels anymore if you knew your husband, wife was in a hotel with somebody. And so now, and now you start thinking, wait a minute, when we were on vacation at Disney World 2 years ago and my partner told me they had a meeting, did they really step out for an hour and have a meeting? Or were they talking to her affair partner? Or were they meeting somebody and doing this in a scene? So it affects the past as well as the present. It's the only trauma that affects the past. So those are key differences. So this is what I mean. When you go to see somebody that's not trauma informed, especially not betrayal trauma informed, they're just going to lump this into, oh, you're experiencing trauma. No, this is a unique trauma and it takes unique training.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It almost sounds like saying a specialist, right? I never heard that term of like trauma therapy. It's very interesting.
Oh yeah, but then there's also betrayal trauma. So
Right.
yeah, so absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said before, stress affects us. Trauma changes us. It changes us in many ways. Number one, it's hypervigilance. You are hypervigilance. So I want you to imagine right now somebody holding a loaded gun to your forehead. Okay. Do you think you're going to be able to just relax, go to the bathroom, go shopping at the grocery store? You have somebody with a... No, you are in a constant state of hypervigilance. That's one of the things that affects people. After the discovery of betrayal, now they're constantly in hypervigilance. It doesn't matter if they're sleeping, going to the bathroom, having sex with the person who hurt them. They can be grocery shopping, on the phone with their mother. They're in a constant state of hypervigilance. There's... lots of physical manifestation, night sweats, nightmares, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. There's what's called Talesian effluvium, which is stress-related hair loss. If you don't deal with this, studies have linked IBS to this, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, even other cancerous diseases. So betrayal trauma, well, trauma in general is like a lava that's in our body, which is why I try to do somatic work with a lot of my clients, because just like lava, it's going to kill everything it touches. If you have this ball of lava in your body and you don't address it, it's going to slowly move around your body, like destroying and jeopardizing not only you physically, but mentally, emotionally, financially. There is not one element, not one iota of somebody's life that's not affected after betrayal. Not one, none. Financially, they're affected. Spiritually, they're affected. Physiologically, they're affected. Physically, they're affected. There's not one area of their mind, body, and soul in their life that's not affected after betrayal trauma.
Absolutely. Because it sounds like they're personalizing it, which makes it that much worse in a sense.
It is. Now, since you asked that, Anthony, one of the things that I tell people is you have to be careful of secondary trauma. So, for instance, when you discover there's a betrayal in your life, right? That's the first trauma. The second trauma is we attach it to ourselves somehow, whether that's unhealed childhood wounds, developmental wounds, the story that we keep telling ourselves, what was wrong with me? What was wrong with me? Why did I gain so much weight? Was I not doing that? Whatever. Now we traumatize ourselves, and that's secondary trauma. And I'll tell you something, that loop, that dialogue, that narrative can stay in your mind for decades and decades and decades if you don't address it. And all you're doing is really, you ever blow a bubble? You know, you got the little wand and you dunk it in the bubble and you blow a bubble and then a nice big bubble comes out. But then sometimes like 5, 6 little, 7 little tiny bubbles are around that. Like it attaches to the big bubble, like, you know, a bunch of little bubbles attached to the big bubble. Well, those are a lot of times your secondary traumas, and you got to be very careful they don't attach to the first trauma, because then again, what's happening is you're not going to be able to heal from your primary trauma, the betrayal, because now everything's convoluted. And no matter what your spouse, significant other, or partner does to try to help you heal that, you're going to go back to, you know, other traumas that were unhealed, and it's going to be impossible. You got to be very, very... Healing is intent. I say all the time, if I have a couple that comes to me after betrayal trauma, I'm going to tell you something. Both of you have a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do independently, and then you have a lot of work you have to do together, and you cannot skip out on anything. You can't skip out on the work you do independently, and you can't skip out on the work you do together. And if you do, this is going to tremendously challenge your healing.
Wow, that's a very important point there. I mean, you had also touched on somatic therapy. You want to get into that and everything that entails?
Yeah, so the layman's terms for somatic techniques or anything is basically just body work. So it's making yourself feel safe. Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to answer your question, I promise. But you ever get a cut on anywhere in your body and you put a little ointment on it, you put a Band-Aid on it, and then 5 or 6 days later you take the Band-Aid off and you're like, wow, that healed relatively well. Anthony, our body is the same way. If we can make our nervous system feel safe, our body will naturally heal a lot of itself. But here's the deal. We just don't feel safe after betrayal, so our body can't heal. Especially if we're living with somebody and we decide to reconnect with somebody and they're not doing the work, or they're falling short during the work, or they're blasé during doing the work. You know what that's like? That's like being raped by somebody and then living with your rapist. You're never going to be in a place of safety, so your body can't heal. So absolutely, somatic techniques is just basically getting your body to feel safe. You can do, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff from EFT, which is tapping, to just, butterfly hugging, to, there's the push-pull method. I mean, there's a lot of, but basically what you want to do is you want to do some body work to knead out the trauma in your body really quick. You ever go to a massage? You're like, oh, I'm going to go get a massage tomorrow. And you're like, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to sit there and it's going to feel so good. Oh, it's going to put me in heaven. And then you get to the massage therapist and they're like, kneading your back. And you're like, oh my God, was your previous field a construction worker? Oh, this is not relaxing. Well, what they're doing is they're undoing a lot of the knots in your back and in your body. It doesn't feel good, but fast forward 2 or 3 days, and you're like, oh my God, I feel great. That's what a lot of this work is. You got to go in there and knead out that trauma, and it doesn't feel good. And you do a lot of kneading out through somatic techniques.
That's a great point there, yeah. Because you just mentioned, like, your nervous system is all stressed. You can't really heal like that. I mean, it's very difficult. Like, when you're regulated, it makes you much easier to feel. And when you actually feel, that's when the healing process takes place.
Yeah, and your body is also more receptive to certain healing modalities, techniques. And also, so for instance, if you're I just told you, imagine a gun to your head, right? So imagine somebody standing right there with a loaded gun to your head and their fingers on the trigger, right? You're going to be even careful how you're talking to me. You're like, you're whatever. So do you think that you're going to really be soft and loving and warm and understanding with everything? Or are you going to be like, oh my, so the fact that when you can relax, you're just more receptive to more of the healing process. So really, this is why I tell people all the time, the more that you guys are vulnerable and lean into each other, the quicker this healing is going to be.
Absolutely. This sounds like it makes everything work better in a sense.
Yes. However, we all got childhood wounds. We all got our ego. We all got, and here's the deal. This is what makes a lot of this tough, is because and I hear this from a lot of people, Anthony, Mr. J, I'm tired of being the victim and the bad guy in my marriage. I did lean in. I did listen. I did this. But how about when she does this? Or how about when he does that? And because listen, you still have marital issues. You still have marital issues, and both parties have absolutely plausible marital issues. But one of the things that I tell people all the time is, listen, after betrayal, we have 3 gardens in our life. We have our personal garden that we have to tend to. That's, working out, eating well, praying, meditating, whatever you do for yourself, that's your personal garden. You also have your marriage garden, and you have to tend to that. Whatever your marriage garden is, talk about bills, talk about kids, be there, have sex, whatever your marriage. But now you also created a 3rd garden, and that's the repair and rebuild broken trust garden. And you need to tend to that specifically. So there's no such thing as, bringing in marital issues to your other garden. No, that has to be tended to in its own way.
Yeah, so it sounds like taking a 100% responsibility for your side of the street is key.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yes. Yeah. But this is this is what's tough. When you have 3 gardens in your life, it's very hard for the average person, and I get it, to take 100% responsibility for one garden, but 50% responsibility in the next garden. Although I don't even like that analogy, because you want to know something? I always tell people, you need to take 100% responsibility for how you show up in the marriage, regardless. Because, and especially if somebody now I'm going on a tangent, especially if somebody comes from a world of faith, because I actually am a wedding officiant also, so I like, I marry couples. And I tell couples all the time, especially if they have a faith background, you are promising a higher power you're going to act a certain way. So that means even if the person you're marrying doesn't honor their vow, that doesn't give you a right not to honor yours. You made a commitment to a higher power that you're going to, no matter what, I'm going to honor you by honoring the person you brought in my life. So if the person that brought in your life is not holding up their end of the deal, shame on them. However, shame on you if you don't, because you still made a promise to a higher power. But I digress and get into another whole segment.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That can be difficult, though, for sure.
Well, tell me what relationship is easy. Listen,
I mean,
marriage and relationships are not for little boys and little girls. I mean, it is no joke. It is no joke. And I'll tell you something. Anthony, when I'm like marrying a couple, like officiating a wedding, especially if it's a younger couple, and especially if they say they don't want like any pre-marriage coaching or anything like that, do you know how many times I'm looking at these two young souls? And listen, they're paying me to do a job, so I will. But I'm thinking, you guys are exchanging I do's without even knowing who the I am is.
Whoa.
You're in for a challenge.
Powerful, yeah. I should think about that one. So it's like, essentially, when we start to take that 100% responsibility for it, it's like, you mentioned that it takes work, because we think about working on our business, right? We think about working on our health, but sometimes we just expect relationships to happen, but it doesn't work like that in a sense.
No. Well, let me just say this for people that are listening that are very, very work oriented. Marriage is work. Marriage is a business. It's an emotional business. So, you want to go into business. Listen, if you and I were to open up a business, what are some fundamentals? Anthony, we can't steal from each other. So that's number one, okay? Any decisions we make, we got to talk about each other. Like marriage is a business. You're starting a business with somebody. It's an emotional business. One of the things that I have my couples do is, oh Lord, now it's when you create a business, you have a write-up about a mission statement. Whew, Lord have mercy. I have my couples create a marital mission statement. What is your marital mission statement? Because I need you guys to be on the same board. If you don't have a fundamental foundation of the same goals, the same thought, I need a marriage mission statement. And a marriage mission statement helps a couple come together to really talk about what's important to me on a core level, on a fundamental level, and where do we see each other. So not only are you working with core values, you also have goals that now you're working together. So I have all my couples try to create a marriage mission statement.
Wow, yeah. So it sounds like being values aligned is key.
Absolutely, but here's the deal. Yes, that would be nice if your values, but even if they're not, can I still value your value? That's important.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's not like everything's going to be 100% aligned, but it's like, can we still respect this other person?
Yeah, and respect them enough to want to lean in and merge and help them support their goals, even if I don't necessarily value them or understand them or like them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Back to betrayal for a moment.
Yes.
Like, so on the other side of it, what can be some causes? Like, why would somebody do that to another person? I mean, even just saying it's like, it may not be personal. It's like maybe like her own trauma in a sense, even like, but it's on the other side.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. First of all, affairs and infidelity start in childhood. That's number one. Number two, there is the affair triangle. And basically what an affair triangle is, you have your first point, which is previous wounds, childhood trauma, developmental challenges, whatever. So that's your first point. Your second point is an environmental stimuli, something that abrupts you. And then your third point is temptation. So let me give you an example of the triangle. I don't know. Your mother was an alcoholic, And so she really wasn't there a lot for you. And so now you have these childhood wounds, childhood developmental things of I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. Okay? That's now the lens in which you view the world. I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, you lose a job. Your kids are being a teenager, being mouthy. Your parent passes away, whatever. That's the next stimuli. That's the next point. And then the third point is, let's just say you're a male. Let's just say we're talking about a heterosexual male-female marriage. And let's just say the guy goes to work, and so he's dealing with childhood trauma. Now he's dealing with a life experience that's shocking or traumatic or not happy, whatever. And then he goes to work, and his secretary is flinging her hair. You're so cool. I love when you joke. You're so, and let me touch you on the hand, and maybe rub your. Infidelity is a million micro justifications. It just doesn't happen. It's a million micro justifications. But that's the triangle. So it's previous stuff, current stuff, and then an opportunity, whatever. And so what happens is that, and this is what's interesting, because when somebody finds out, oh my God, my spouse had an affair, my spouse cheated on me, all they're experiencing is that bomb that went off. And that's when they're saying, how could you do this to me? But when we pull it back and slow it down, we say, well, listen, when he or she was 6 or 7, this is what happened. This was their life's narrative. Then this happened that triggered their childhood trauma, leaving them exposed to a vulnerability. And instead of them making mature decisions and maybe going to you or going to a therapist, they decided they want to confide in a coworker. And then that coworker showed them something and made them feel something they didn't. So it's 1,000 justifications that gets there. So it takes a while. So that's why it's nuanced, and there's a lot that goes with this.
Yeah, that's an excellent explanation. It sounds like it's very multifaceted, and perhaps like there's a lot of things that may be contributing to it that we're not even aware of. So,
no, not. And this is why a lot of time, one of the things that I have couples do when they first come to me is I want you to go back and write your younger self a letter. I want you to write your younger self a letter. I don't care if you had a wonderful childhood or an extremely traumatic childhood. You need to go back to the basics and write yourself a letter. By the way, the Latin word for trauma is wound. And I don't know about you, but I think everybody has wounds. Even with the best. Because listen, trauma isn't necessarily what happened to you. It could also be what didn't happen to you. Because trauma is anything that overwhelms our coping mechanisms. So let's just say your father worked second shift growing up, right? So he busted his butt to work second shift, but every time you went outside to play, you saw your next door neighbor's father playing ball with your friend. And so over a period of time, if that were to overwhelm your coping, like, why doesn't my father love me enough to play ball with me? Well, he's working, so it's not necessarily what happens. It could be what didn't happen. You didn't get something you needed. And over time, that just overwhelmed your coping mechanisms. It changed you. What have you. Now that's a very, very mild, example and all this other stuff. So what I do is I have people go back to your younger self and write your younger self a letter. Now listen, you want to kind of make sure it's pencil and paper, none of this computer and iPad stuff. Pen and paper, old-fashioned pen and paper. Maybe dim the lights, listen to some relaxing music, maybe even have a glass of wine to calm down. And if somebody has a drinking problem, please don't do that. And what you want to do is you want to picture, okay, when was there ever a time I didn't feel safe? Which probably in our childhood, a good majority of us at times didn't. And that could be anything. Could have been a neighbor didn't make you feel safe. Could have been your parents didn't make you feel safe. An older sibling, whatever the case may be. There was a time I didn't feel safe. Okay, and I want you to write that little boy or that little girl a letter. And basically just say, hey, I see you. I see what you're doing. Oh my gosh, you're in your little blue shirt with your tie. You're outside playing and you don't want to go in because mom and dad are arguing and that doesn't make you feel safe. And I just want to let you know that I understand your pain. I feel your pain because I was you once. And I want to let you know I love you and I have your back. I didn't have a voice for you then. I couldn't have your back then because I didn't have the tools. But I have the tools now. And together, you and I are going to rock this thing called healing. And I want you to write that letter and take it wherever you want to. But that's going to be the basics of your healing. Now, if people are open to it, I ask them to write with their non-dominant hand. And one of the reasons being is because we all have filters. We all have filters. We go out to the grocery store and the cashier says, did you find everything? You're like, yeah, everything's great. Life is great. Found everything I want. Well, unless you're waiting in a big, long Walmart line, then you're not happy. But anyways, Everything is great. That's all our filters. We go out and how's our neighbor and how's the, we have a lot of filters in life. But when you're right with your non-dominant hand, those filters come down and you can get real and raw with yourself. And keep in mind, this letter is not for anybody but you. So I don't care if you're writing chicken scratch, it's just for you. But it's really to get all of that childhood yuck out onto paper, get it out of your body, out on paper. That's where we can start, sometimes you can start the healing process there.
I love it, man. I would imagine forgiveness is a part of that as well.
Okay, well, here's the deal with forgiveness. First of all, I'm going to ask you, without using the term letting go or forgive, what is your definition of forgiveness?
Forgiveness to me is, for me, it's kind of for you in a sense. Kind of letting go of resentment, anything that may not be serving you, because you don't want to necessarily hold on to that. And of course, like, in a sense, you're creating energy and openness to the other person as well. But like, ultimately, I just don't want to be able to be bitter for the rest of my life, because that person may or may not be on this earth anymore, right? So just being able to let go of that energy within you.
Okay, but here's the deal. I asked you what your definition of forgiveness was without using the term letting go, and you used let go. So if you're going to use the term let go, what's the process of going about that?
The process, I would say, man, everything we've kind of been talking about in a sense is basically doing the inner work and doing that inner healing. And finding about what these things mean to you. Like, okay, this thing happened. Now, what do we make it mean? Like, bring that awareness to it and just kind of like going from there and taking the steps.
Okay, yeah. So I want to tell you something. First of all, one of the first things I think people need to do is they need to spend a lot of time writing down all the lies they were ever told and they believed. That includes the lies we told ourselves. So for instance, let's just say you came home from school and you wanted to show your mother or your father your schoolwork, but she was cooking or he was doing something, and no, I don't have time right now. And that sets a narrative that I'm not important to my parents. I'm not, or whatever your story is. Okay, so then you repeated that over and over to yourself throughout your life, and that becomes one of your fundamental beliefs. What you have to do is write down all of the lies you ever told yourself or you ever heard and you believed. And the first thing you want to do is define what forgiveness is, and then invert it, turn it around, and apply it to yourself. Forgive yourself for believing all it. Because I'll tell you something, a lot of our trauma is simply just believing the lies that we were told. So if we can undo that, we can undo some trauma.
Absolutely, getting the truth of the situation.
Yeah, and I will say this, when it comes to couples reconciling, rebuilding, repairing, I don't even talk about forgiveness, because forgiveness is something that happens naturally during the healing process.
Love it. That makes sense. All right, Mr. J, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, man. Just talking to you. It's like you're so knowledgeable. Like, I can ask you a question and go pretty much any direction with it, and that's how I know what mastery is about. You really know what you're talking about, man. I can really admire that. And there's so many different tactics that we go into. Even if we're not dealing with this particular situation, we can use these tools for like trauma in general, in a sense, and then kind of personalizing it to our situation. So, again, man, I appreciate you so much and sharing our insights with us. It's been really awesome.
Thank you. It's all wisdom born from pain. But I'll accept it, and I thank you for your time, Anthony.
Absolutely. I love it. So if people want to get connected with you and all your work, where can we find you?
I have the easiest website in life. It's mrjrelationshipcoach.com. But even if people never want to hear me, see me, talk to me, nothing like that, just come to my website, again, mrjrelationshipcoach.com, and take advantage of the many free resources I have on there.
Awesome. Thank you.